All right, what's up, guys? How's everybody doing? It's our last podcast here. We're finishing up the high school season last weekend. So, how you guys doing?
Good, Gavin.
Good,
How are
Gavin.
you?
Good. Yeah, it's an exciting weekend last weekend. Saw a couple teams win some state titles, and but kind of getting into it first, just our last Power 25 update was on Monday. So, Drew, you're going to kind of take us through a quick little rundown of some of those teams.
Thanks, Gavin. Yeah, the final Power 25 I think is probably the hardest Power 25 update of the year, because we have to factor in the entirety of the season and who were the top teams throughout the year. And sometimes the postseason can muddy the waters a little bit because it's a one and done playoff system here in Illinois, and I mean anybody can beat anybody on a given day. Um, which we do factor that in, making a state title run, playing for the championship, winning the state title should mean it should be heavily weighted, but so is the regular season. So trying to mix and match that and really just look at who we think the best teams are, given the whole season run. And Providence Catholic winning the 4A state title with the teams they had to knock off to get there, and just kind of starting the sectional championship with Lincoln Way West. And then they had to knock off Mount Carmel in an intense super sectional game at Ozinga. They make it to state, and their state final game is against Edwardsville, the two-time state champion. They knock them off, and then they go ahead and knock off Conant, who was one of the hottest teams in the state that had just beaten York. Providence Catholic, our number one team, I feel really good about them sitting at the top. They're 33-8 on the year. And Edwardsville right behind them. I mean, how can you not be impressed by what they did? 32-9. They play a gauntlet of a schedule. They made it back to state for the third straight year. They were coming off two state titles. And unfortunately for them, they get knocked off by Provi in the semifinals, and Provi goes on to win it. But we thought Edwardsville was a really solid number two, and I think the third team was probably one of the hardest decisions, and I think you could have made a case for them being number two in the state, is Nazareth. I mean, they're 37-1. You have to weight their regular season extremely heavily. Played a lot of good teams and did not lose a single game in the regular season. I don't know the last time that's happened, especially for a 3A, 4A school. And unfortunately for them, they get knocked off by Mount Carmel. It's a one and done playoff series or playoff, I guess, system. And if you're not on your game for one game, anybody can get you. And Mount Carmel got them. But still, just looking at the roster for Nazareth, we were just chatting about it. One of the most talented rosters I've seen come through the state since I've been doing this, since 2015. Top to bottom, their whole lineup is full of Division I guys, position player wise. So we plugged them in at number 3, 37-1. Conant, we went with number 4. They were the state title runners up. 30-8 on the year, really, really impressive year. Got extremely hot in the postseason. Like I just said, I mean, beating York in the semifinals with Ryan Sloan on the mound, that's quite a Herculean task. But they came in at number 4, and then York right behind them at number 5, 31-11. Anytime Ryan Sloan was on the mound, it was a big task to beat him. I think he only gave up 2 earned runs on the entire season. And one of them came in that state semifinal matchup against Conant. So that's just the top 5. I guess rounding out the top 10, Gavin, we plugged in New Trier at number 6, 33-4. Really impressive regular season. Another roster that was loaded top to bottom. Very surprising not to see them at state with that lineup they had, the way they were playing. They were one of the hottest teams in the state going into the playoffs. Lincoln Way West was extremely impressive throughout the entirety of the season. They lost in the sectional championship to Providence. They went 30-5 on the year. So they came in at number 7. Number 8, Crystal Lake Central. I mean, I think you got to give them kudos for what they did in the postseason. They go into the postseason at 15-14. but they're a little unique because they're one of the only 3A schools that play in that Fox Valley Conference. So they're playing 4A juggernauts the entire season. They're going to take their losses. They make the run to state. They go to the state championship game, and they knock off Lamont. One of the most, I guess, surprising state title runs in the last couple of years. It kind of reminded me of the playoff run that Plainfield East made for 4A a few years back with Brady Lauk when they went into the playoffs, under 500. Crystal Lake Central 15-14 going into the playoffs, doing what they did, making that run. They come in at number 8. Really impressive stuff for them, and congratulations on the state championship. That's really, really cool to see. Lamont at number 9, they kind of snuck in. We probably undervalued them throughout the year. The one time I saw them, it did not get the best look at them. Playing Lincoln Way West with the wind blowing out, with Shea Glotzbach on the mound, who we'll talk about later, just probably skewed my view of them. But they got second place, runner up in Class 3A. And they went 31-10 on the year. And then Morris, really, really, impressive season for those guys. 30-4 on the year, knocked off some really good teams. But most impressively was taking down Joliet Catholic in the playoffs for me. That seemed like a matchup you easily could have seen in state, like in the finals in Joliet. So that's the top 10. I know I'm a little long-winded there, Gavin, but
yeah.
Once again,
not
an easy task to try to figure out this final Power 25, and we do the best we can with kind of weighing, both the regular season and the playoffs. So,
yeah, so a new top 10, new top 25 as a whole. Kind of talking through last weekend. We'll separate it between 3A and 4A, but yeah, kind of like Drew mentioned, Crystal Lake Central, they were kind of the big winners, out of that weekend, I would say, just coming from being 15-14 to winning the state title. I don't think a lot of people probably would have guessed that they would be the ones coming out on top in that really talented 3A division. I'm sure the guys in the Tigers dugout would say otherwise, but I think outside, not a lot of people would have predicted that. So big shout out to them. I know, Tyler, you got to look at them in their state title game on Saturday. I was there on Friday. So, Ty, I'll kind of let you take the reins on this and kind of talk through their team.
Yeah. Again, congratulations to the Tigers on winning 3A state. But for me, player of that game was Rhett Osment. It's an uncommitted junior, was just all over the barrel from the right side. He's a stronger looking kid. But his first at bat almost leaves the yard out to left field with a double off the wall. And then late in the game, Crystal Lake Central's threatening. He triples I believe it was the bottom of the 6th, and then later comes around to score, which was the eventual winning run for Crystal Lake Central. So he played third base for him. Gavin, I know he pitched for you the day before, and I think he threw the ball well. So for me, he was like the biggest winner for Crystal Lake Central over the weekend. You also had Tommy Korn, who closed out both games for them. Just kind of a guy that brings a ton of energy when he's on the mound, pitches with a lot of emotion, and a lot of conviction as well. I had him up to 86, in his final inning of work against Lamont in the state title game. It's mainly low to mid 80s, but, just another arm for them that, was big, in the biggest moment. So, Gavin, I'll let you touch on Osment.
Yeah, just talking about Osment too. Like he threw against a really good Morris team. I actually had seen them once before in the playoffs, and I thought they were really talented. I thought they would kind of be that team. They had gotten past Joliet Catholic, so I thought they would be kind of that team that would probably win the 3A state title. But Red Osment, he threw really well against them. Nothing overpowering velo wise or anything, but really just kind of attacked those hitters and got outs. So shout out to Osment for that. But kind of moving on to Lamont now. Honestly, the biggest winner for me from their team was Brett Tucker. He's a 2026. He's a very wiry build. Played shortstop for them. He's got long levers, but he moves well. He knows how to control them. He barreled some balls up in the semifinal game. Really, actually to the warning track type hits. I think in two of them, and then he had a really good play at shortstop where he had a diving backhand. He could have tried to throw the guy out at first, but there was a guy on second base, and he made the decision to kind of run at the guy going to third, and he got the out. It was a pretty good play. But he made some pretty good plays throughout the weekend too, or throughout Friday too. Just some soft hands, athletic kid, good mover. So I really liked Tucker. I thought he was a pretty big winner for me.
I just wanted to touch on Tucker some more because his defense carried over right into the next game in the championship game. Drew was a college coach. He's probably going to agree with this next thing I say, but like baseball teams, high school, college, whatever, one of the biggest things they practice are relay throws. And in the championship game, Brett Tucker made not only a strong throw from left field on a relay, but it was also super accurate. And when you get a combination of a strong arm and an accurate arm, especially in a big spot like that, it really stands out to me. And it cut down a run at a time where it would have gave Crystal Lake Central the lead. I believe it was tied 0-0 at the time early in the game. And then it gave Lamont some early momentum in the game. So he's a guy that really was a big winner for me when I saw Lamont. So I just wanted to add to that for you, Gavin.
Yeah, for sure. So a big weekend for Tucker. It's a good showing for 2026, kind of moving forward into that potential recruiting process here come August 1st. But Shea Glotzbach, he was another winner for me on the mound. And we were talking on the call before. I think Drew maybe had seen him earlier in the spring. Last Friday, I saw him. He was up to 88. He was like a mid to upper 80s guy. I think he was 84 to probably 86, 87, touching 88. He's pretty raw still. He has a really quick arm. He was mostly fastball throughout. He threw a slider too and a changeup that had some fade. But just the levers on him, the upside on the kid, he's a pretty wiry build. There's still a lot more to come, and kind of just a name that coaches should know about moving forward because he's an uncommitted kid too. So Shea Glotzbach, he was a big winner for me. Def, I don't know if you want to touch on anyone else from that Lamont squad, but I know you saw them on Saturday as well.
Just to go off of what you're saying, Gavin, Glotzbach, I mean, they've got a couple really impressive frames on that Lamont team. When you look at Glotzbach, you look at Jacob Parr, you look at Cannon Madej. They really wear the uniform right, but Glotzbach, it would not be surprising if that velocity just keeps trending up. To me, he's really got only one way to go, and that's just continuing to get better. Because from what I saw earlier in the spring to what you guys saw at the state finals, it seems like he already made a pretty big jump just in the polish. The breaking ball seemed like it ticked up a little bit for you guys. So he's one for anybody out there to definitely circle, follow moving forward. But yeah, Tyler, anybody else, on that roster that did it for you?
Yeah, I think Jake Parr deserves a mention here. He got the start for Lamont in the championship game, and I honestly thought it was a pretty gutsy performance. I'm not sure if he had his best stuff. I think he'd probably tell you he didn't. But it's low to mid 80s. I had him up to 84. It's not super overpowering, but he was throwing strikes early and keeping his defense in the game, trusting his defense. And then towards the end, I feel like he just kind of ran out of gas a little bit, but I know we also really like him as a bat. He's a physical left-handed hitter. Got a hit for me late in the game that could have potentially sparked something for Lamont, but unfortunately it just didn't unfold that way for them. But no, I think Parr's my last guy from Lamont I want to talk about.
Yeah, just to talk about his bat a little bit. 6'4", 200 pounds, left-handed hitter. When I saw him, he's playing center field. So it kind of jumps off the page at you right away when you see a frame that physical playing center field. Like, I loved it because it speaks to his athleticism. He moves well for his size. We've had him as a 7 flat runner. That should only continue to get better. He has arm strength. He's been 87 from the outfield. He's got some jump off the barrel, some juice. Like, I saw him hit a home run when I saw them play earlier in the spring. He reminds me of Colin Jennings a little bit, a guy that came out of Marist a few years back and went to Illinois. Long levers and kind of popped late and just continues to get better. All the reports I heard from him going into college as a freshman was, man, he's really made some strides. So that's just he's a guy that I'm gonna keep a close eye on to see what kind of trajectory he keeps going, because it could turn into something really, really good.
Yeah, I in the semifinal game, just watching, seeing his frame in center field. That's not often that you see a guy that looks like that playing center. So yeah, that was pretty intriguing as well. But kind of moving over to Morris, I'll just touch on them briefly. But I know, Def, you probably want to talk about Cody Del Favro, just because you saw him pitch in that third place game on Saturday. But I saw Jack Wheeler. He threw an inning in relief, if I remember right. He was like 88, 89, really big frame, really quick arm. His slider was like 74 to 76. I think it was actually up to 78 too, but it was a pretty short break. Didn't get a long look at him, but it was interesting for sure. Just that 6'5" frame, pretty wiry kid. He's committed to Illinois. And then Zemi Baftiri, just a quick shout out to him too. He just committed to Evansville yesterday. And I saw him obviously on Friday, but then I had seen him a couple weeks prior in the playoffs, and I think he just looks the part up the middle. Really good hands, moves really well, athletic kid. And then at the plate, he's a right-handed hitter. He's just it's pretty loose. It's not stiff. Pretty athletic hands, loose hands. I didn't see a ton of hits from him, but I really like him. I think he's a interesting 2025 there, and just I think he still has more to add on to with his frame. He's kind of a wiry kid as well. But go ahead, Drew.
No, he just strikes me as a baseball player that can stick on the infield up the middle. I saw him early in the spring as one of the first games out of the chute, and he made a web gem type play going to the glove side, completing the out. So the actions, the tools are there for him to stay up the middle of the field. I know Peter Hammett, who's not on this call today, saw him play really well when he got an eye on Morris. So definitely probably, as far as like our list goes, and this is something that we're always trying to, I don't know the right way to put it, Gav and Tyler, but we're always, our list is ever evolving when it comes to rankings, right? So, Zemi getting few glimpses here and there, makes one play early in the spring, and we put that in the memory bank, and we make comments on it in our Google sheet and what we how we handle our rankings. And then Peter Hammett sees him really good again a couple weeks later, and then he shows really good again at state. Like, that's a guy that probably needs to continue to move up our list. Maybe was a touch too low, and then clearly Evansville likes him as well. They're committing him. So we're constantly, rankings are never, a set in stone type of list. It's always guys going up, down, showing well for themselves, vice versa. And Zemi is definitely a guy that just has been kind of on that arrow up, and our list should probably show the same as we update it here moving forward.
Yeah, and Tyler, before you touch on Del Favro's pitching on Saturday, I kind of want to mention his hitting on Friday too. He kind of led their offense, I would say, in that state semifinal game. His first at bat, let me make sure I'm getting these right. So his first at bat, he took an opposite field or an outer half curveball to the oppo side for a double. His second at bat, he had a no doubt home run over the like right center field wall. That was their first run of the game, and then in his third at bat, he barreled one to right field, really well hit ball. The right fielder made a good diving play to get the out. But every time I've seen Cody, like I saw him a couple times throughout the summer in 2023, and he just seems like a gamer to me. He's probably not a guy that's going to come to a showcase and put up insane metrics or anything, but he's just a guy that when you see him play in game, he gets it done. And I know he gets it done on the mound too, as you saw on Saturday. But I really like Cody. He's going to Parkland, so it's going to be sad, not getting to see him in high school anymore. But he's a competitor on the mound and at the plate too. So good for Del Favro there.
Yeah, no, with Del Favro, like, to me, it just strikes me as a kid who genuinely loves playing the game. This was my first in-depth look at seeing Cody, and Just a spark plug on both sides. At the plate, on the mound, entering that third place game, entering the state tournament, Cody was 13-0 on the mound during the season. Like that's insane. And he finishes the year 14-0. That game went into extra innings. He went the entire time. He tossed 8 innings. Just a kid that just strikes me as an ultimate competitor out there. True bulldog mentality. It's 82 to 84 with the fastball. He was earning a ton of swing and miss with the breaking ball, and I just think there's real two-way ability there at the next level with Parkland, and to me they got a really good one there with Cody.
Yeah, I was just looking at the stat line of that third place game, and he went 8 innings, 1 hit, 5 Ks, no walks, and it was 62 of 84 pitches for strikes.
And adding on to that, he took the no-no into the sixth.
Wow.
That just refreshed my memory there. So,
Yeah,
just what a year from Cody. Certainly a season he's going to remember probably for the rest of his life. So,
Yeah, and that's
good
similar
stuff
to what
there.
I saw in the sectional game against Washington, and Washington had a good lineup too. So, just attacks hitters. But kind of looking at Highland too, they maybe didn't have the best showing at the state tournament last weekend, but I mean they had to get through Mascuda and then Muhammad Seymour, two very good teams to get to state. So I don't know if you guys want to mention anybody on their team, but Highland ended up getting fourth place there at 3A.
yeah, for Highland in that same game against Morris, it was a true pitchers duel, and Trent Clemens for Highland stood out to me. Really gave it his all out there. Unfortunately, he was just on the wrong side of the pitchers duel in this one, but he's a senior going to Rockhurst. It's nothing overpowering on the mound, but really just threw a ton of strikes and pitched to his defense, and was just pitching to contact, got a ton of weak contact, and there's some really good hitters in that Morris lineup, as we just mentioned. So, a really good performance from Trent Clemens. Nothing he should hang his head about.
Did you want to mention anything, Drew?
Just Coach Hawkins for Highland. 700, more than 700 wins now. He eclipsed that number this year in 2024, and no stranger to state. And he clearly knows what he's doing down there. Just another one of the really good coaches in Southern Illinois. When you look around that area and coaches that are doing it. So I kind of wanted to give him a shout out because he's been doing it a long, long time. When I was coaching, we recruited a couple Highland players that were standouts for us at the junior college that I was at, and I have always respected Coach Hawkins, and their teams always play good baseball and are tough to beat, and it's not a surprise that he makes runs in the postseason.
So now, kind of transitioning over to 4A, I think Providence Catholic. That was a big thing to mention here. They won the 4A state title, and that was their 6th state title in school history, which is the IHSA leading for most state titles by a single high school program. So shout out to Provi for that. I mean, they did not have an easy route by any means. I know in the regular season we were kind of back and forth with them in the rankings, but I mean they went through the playoffs and they beat a good Edwardsville team in the semifinal game. But I mean, Def, you saw Caston Gilbert in the state finals, so you wanna mention him really quick?
Yeah, and before I get to that, just Providence Catholic to me seemed like a team that coming into this, that they figured it all out. Like they were pretty much a complete team. Like when everything's working, I mean, this is a team that can defend. It's a team that can hit, and they've got arms. So congratulations again to the Celtics on this state title. But yeah, Caston Gobert started in the championship game, almost went the distance, but he's an uncommitted junior. Absolutely pounded the zone throughout the game. He didn't light up the stat sheet with strikeouts. He just pitched to his defense and was pitch efficient and threw a bunch of strikes. It's a mid-80s fastball. We had him up to 88 once or twice early. And on top of that, he had feel to spin the breaking ball as well when he needed it. But special shout out to him. He made one bad pitch the entire game, which we'll touch on later. But Just an absolute awesome performance from him.
And he did it throughout the playoffs because I saw him throw against Lincoln Way West in the sectional championship, and he almost won a CG in that one as well. And Lincoln Way West was a formidable lineup. And just getting back to this Providence Catholic thing, I think it's really cool that they're the last team to win 3 straight state titles, 2014, 2015, 2016. And they match up against Edwardsville in the semifinals. And Edwardsville going for their 3rd straight state title. And for Providence to knock them off, not allow them to get there. Just a cool storyline that I thought the semifinal, game had. And just speaking to their team, Coach Smith had all kinds of, depth, I felt like, this year, especially just offensively. We saw a lot of different lineups when we saw Providence throughout the year, throwing guys in, whether it's John Greenwood, hitting in the 4-hole when I saw them play Lincoln Way West in the sectional championship, to Eddie Olsta getting in there right in the middle of the lineup, to Sammy Atkinson, to moving Enzo Infelice to play third base so that Blake Jenner can come in and catch. Just a lot of different pieces, that Coach Smith could work with over there this year. And when he gets those kind of options and he's able to mix and match and play the hot hand, that really allows him to do his thing and allow him to shine. And like you said, like, they figured it out come the postseason. They figured out their pitching. I know Cooper Eggert was a really, really big arm for them throughout the playoffs. Had huge moments in the super sectional game over there at Ozinga, and then also in the state in the state finals.
Yeah, we both kind of saw that game. Tyler was getting there right around that time, but just kind of talking through him. I mean, he was mid to upper 80s with his fastball. He's got a good slider, and then just the way he competed against one of the best teams and one of the most, over the past probably 5 years, best teams in the entire state in Edwardsville. Like, he went there, and there was no look in his eyes. It was like, man, he's maybe a little nervous. This game's too big for him. It was, hey, I'm Cooper Eggert. I'm gonna be myself. I'm gonna pitch my game. He was calm, composed on the mound, and he just competed. He threw a complete game, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, no earned runs, and 1 hit allowed. I mean, that speaks for itself. Like, that is a really, really good game for him. And he's a clean, easy mover, kind of a low 3/4 slot. I really like Eggert on the mound, so big shout out to him. I mean, that's a really good outing against a good team.
And just a little more on Eggert, like, he's kind of coming into his own on the mound. He's somewhat fresh to, being a mainstay pitcher for Providence. He's long been a very intriguing left-handed bat that I've liked and that we've liked. So to see him do that and step up in these big spots, he's going to make it at least a decision for him going into college on, is he going to try to be a true two-way guy? Is he going to be a position player? Is the arm going to be ahead of the bat? Like, where's that all going to go? Should be interesting for him just for the next level conversations, because he really is a truly talented two-way prospect. Outside of, Cooper Eggert and his two-way talents, there were some other position guys that stood out. I know to you, Tyler, at state in the games you were able to see over there. So why don't you run through a couple more players for us?
Yeah, first guy I want to touch on is Sammy Atkinson. It's a sophomore. We have him pretty highly ranked in our rankings, but it's a kid I really liked when I saw him earlier in the year. And as Gavin was saying, I got to the state semis a little late, later in the game. And, there's a big spot in the game, late in the game. I believe it was 0-0 or 1-1. And Atkinson comes up in a big spot and, just super calm at bat, zero panic, laces a single the other way. They held the runner at third, but, arguably he could have scored, the eventual winning run. But just a kid who seems like there's just a ton of quiet confidence from him for a kid that's so young, playing on a really talented and slightly older squad. So he's a scrappy player, has some bat speed, and off of that, it's hard not to. We've gotten this far and we haven't even mentioned Enzo Infelice for Providence Catholic. As Drew, you were saying, like, just the mix and match of lineups that, Coach Mark Smith used all year. Enzo was batting leadoff. towards the end of the year, and batted leadoff in this game and worked like a charm. I think he was on base every single at bat. Whether one of those I think might have been off an error, but also had a couple base knocks. Like, he's going to Oklahoma primarily as a catcher, but played third base and does the job over there. There's just a ton to like with his bat. It's right-handed. He got some easy pop. And Gavin, I don't know if you want to add any more from what you saw in that semifinal game on him or not.
I think the thing about Enzo that I really like is, I don't get to see this team a ton. I've seen him twice this year. And Enzo is just one of those kids that he's got really good bat to ball, and it's really hard to get a strike past him. He's just really really talented hitter that has good bat to ball, like I mentioned, and he doesn't really strike out a ton. He's going to put the ball in play if you give him a pitch to hit. So he's a really advanced hitter, and he's probably one of the better hitters that, like, just pure hitters that I saw this year, and I've seen in the past couple of years of doing this. Just the way he approaches it too is he has so much confidence going up to the plate that you're not going to get him out, and the results are always there too. So.
Yeah, luckily for us, we've been able to track Enzo for a long time. He came to the junior future games back when he was in 8th grade, and every time we've ever seen him, he's always hit. He's had the knack for the barrel, just kind of one of those just born hitters. For him, I think, when you talk about Enzo prospect status, where does it sit? It's going to be where can he profile defensively? Can he be good enough behind the plate, to stay at catcher at the next level? Going to Oklahoma, I mean, that's some big boy baseball. Any Power 5 that you go to, you're going to be asked a lot. But no matter what happens with him positionally, I have a lot of confidence he's going to hit. Because we've always seen it. It doesn't matter if it's low velo, high velo, guys that can really mix it up. He goes in there and he attacks, and he's got good feel for the zone, doesn't chase much, and when he does swing, there is minimal swing and miss. So definitely, one of the better prospects there for Providence. And I think you're spot on, Gav. Another hitter that we've been able to track now for a couple years is Nate O'Donnell. He was a future gamer last year. Actually came as a two-way guy, but we've always liked the bat, played corner infield, committed to Creighton after the future games. And then recently Creighton's had some coaching turnover, so he is back on the board. He is uncommitted 2025. And Tyler, I know you got some looks on him, and why don't you just kind of share what you saw at State?
Yeah, just he was all over the barrel in that championship game. Had two big knocks. One was, really the back-breaking blow in that state title game. Had a 2 RBI single that, expanded the Provi lead out to 4-0 at the time, and also came into close. He was one of Provi's top arms all year, and they really didn't need him on the state semis. We already touched on it. Egger went the whole game, and Gobert was going for the CG in this one, and he came right in and just pounded the zone. I think he only threw like 7 or 8 pitches to get the final 3 outs of the game, and just really trusted his defense. And I know, Drew, you probably followed O'Donnell a lot longer than I have, so he just seems like a kid who always performs.
Exactly. Yeah, he's another one that's just a baseball player. He's been on varsity, since his freshman year and hitting in the middle of that lineup. So he's had all kinds of experience. And just another good one for Providence. And the scary thing is you mentioned it, I think it was yesterday, maybe Tyler, but just or maybe the night of State. But Providence is full of juniors and underclassmen, and they only had 1 or 2 seniors in the lineup. So they are going to be a team that we're going to have to, keep close eyes on for next year. And just like a little precursor for the preseason Power 25, I think you could expect to see Providence pretty high up there. But moving on past Providence, we mentioned them when we talked about the Power 25 and how hard it is to kind of weigh the regular season, the postseason. But Conant, What an awesome run they made to state. Getting past, York and Sloan in the state finals. I know you were locked in on that matchup, Gavin. Just take it from
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I mean, first off, that atmosphere of that game was really electric. That the stadium was full. Def, you were there as well. Like it was rowdy. People were getting into it. The fans were getting into it. It was a really, really fun atmosphere just to be a part of and listen to and be in on, I guess. But um, I think the big winner from that game for me was Frank Kirchner. He's an uncommitted 2025 left-handed arm. He started against Ryan Sloan and York. Going into that game, like you never know how a guy is going to react to pitching against one of the top pitchers in the state, or probably the top pitchers in the state, one of the top in the country. And he did not act scared. He went in there, he competed, and it was a really impressive performance from Kirchner. He's a low 80s guy, had arm side run on his fastball. His slider was like 72 to 74, and his changeup was 77 to 79. The way he moves it's so easy. It's clean. The arm is clean. It's long, loose. A really good look at Kirchner. I'm a huge fan. After that, I had not seen him before, but I know going into state, looking at our preview stories that we had, he was one of their guys. Him and Bryce Loger were their kind of 1-2 punch, and Kirchner had a really good season for Conant. So no surprise to see him do well in that state semifinal game. But just before we move on to Ty, I just wanted to mention Jake Parpet. He's a Heartland commit. I thought he had a really good performance in that state semifinal game. Just the way he was catching for them and the way he moves behind the plate. I know there was like a wild pitch or pass ball that he kind of ran and sprinted to, and slid and dove and got it and prevented. I think he prevented a run. If I remember right, Ty, maybe you can correct me there. But
Yeah.
just a really good play there for Parpet. And I thought he just kind of stood out from that game as well. But I don't know, Daph, if you have anything else that you want to mention from that game or just their team as a whole from Saturday too.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head for Friday. Just an absolute awesome performance from Kirchner and the biggest moment for him. And moving over to Saturday, like they threw their one, Bryce Loger. It's a guy that we were really excited to see. Just a guy who had an awesome year all year, and certainly looked as advertised. He's going to Dartmouth. He's a two-sport guy. He's a like all-state swimmer when he's not playing baseball. And man, he came out, ton of high energy that first inning. Had him up to 89. He had immense feel to spin the fastball. He had two different breaking balls. Slider was, just looking at my sheet, 2,500 on the slider, 2,300 on the curveball, and unfortunately for Loger, he just didn't get the best of defense, in this one. Certainly nothing on him really. Just absolutely pitched his tail off from start to finish, and unfortunately, someone had to lose that game, and it was him and Conant. But man, what a performance from Bryce, and honestly, all year he did it.
Yes, I mean, just looking at the numbers here, Tyler, like he was 11-0 going into state. He had thrown 70 innings. He had struck out 96. He had given up 40 hits, only walked 23, had a 1 ERA. Um, and you mentioned it, like high level swimmer. When he gets into college, I don't know how that's going to work being a college athlete, doing swimming, playing baseball. But if he ever did just kind of focus in on being a pitcher, I think he's got some of the highest upside in the state. Uh, I thought his stuff was really, really dynamic that night of the state finals. I feel like his command was probably not up to par for what he wanted. Just wasn't in the zone with the breaking ball all the time. The fastball command got a little spotty. I know he hit a guy, but I thought the stuff like it was easy to see why his numbers were so good throughout the year because the stuff looks really, really good. He's an athletic, strong kid that's got more to come, and just kind of led the way. Him and Kirchner were the two-headed monster on the mound for them. And, I mean, they also swung it. Like, looking through some of these lineups and the guys that stood out to us, I know you guys talked about Jake Parpet. Like, great year. Parpet hit 427 with 12 doubles, 8 jacks, 30 RBIs, scored 46 runs. So he was really the table setter there offensively. But, man, they were deep. Like, Matt Mays really stood out to us. I hadn't heard the name before. I know he's going to Parkland. He was a QB1 for Conant. Went yard at State as well, but left-handed bat with a really, athletic frame. Really looked the part in the box. Cooper Hansen, guy that stood out for me, like left-handed bat that can run. He had 379 on the year with 6 doubles, a triple, 3 home runs. Isaiah Rhodes, 333 with 12 doubles. I'm going to probably butcher this last name, so Jacob, I'm going to apologize, but Spignowitz, he hit 388 with 12 doubles, 2 jacks as a sophomore. So just a lot of good things going on there with that Conan club. I don't know if I missed anything there, Tyler, if I stole any thunder of you, but feel free to let me know if I did. Logan Gale, that's another guy. We talked about him in a couple calls. I know Peter saw him pretty good, but he hit 339 with 4 doubles, also helped on the mound to a 2.80 ERA. But, man, Conant, for our sake, flew under the radar a little bit. Probably, our fault, I guess, or just, one of those things that happens when you're trying to track all these teams and watch all these teams is you're going to maybe miss a time or two, whether you want to or not. So, but they really stood out, and obviously they proved their worth here in the state finals.
Yeah, looking at Edwardsville here, they ended up getting 3rd place in state. They were trying for that three-peat of state titles, but they couldn't get past that Providence Catholic team, like we kind of mentioned. But kind of the big story for them, I guess I would say, is they did it without their Joe Chirotto, who he kind of got hurt in the middle of the year. He was a really good arm for them, but he was also good at the plate. I think he led them offensively throughout the year when he was still playing. But then
pretty simple. I just one of the best players in the state. He's committed to Alabama. We had seen him multiple times on the mound. I mean, he pitches in the low 90s with advanced off-speed offerings. He's in the strike zone. He's a dynamic outfielder. He's been up to 98 from the outfield. He's got all kinds of juice at the plate. He is a true two-way talent and one of the best prospects in the state. And Edwardsville goes into the playoffs, and right before the playoffs gets dinged up, and he's out for the postseason. And then you look at who Edwardsville has to play right out of the gate. They're facing Collinsville. They're facing Ethan Bagwell. They beat Ethan Bagwell. Then they get to face O'Fallon, who's got like 61 arms. They knock off O'Fallon, and they just keep cruising through the playoffs. And it is just such a cool sight to see what Coach Funkhauser has going down there with those guys. It doesn't matter who they have. They are just going to play good baseball, and they are going to be tough to beat. They're going to do the little things right. And, man, to see this run he went on, having 3 arms all playoffs that are all sophomores that you're leaning on with Milburn, you got Tony Eberlin, you got Hunter Ball, and, I mean, they didn't miss a stride. I know they lose in the state semifinals, and I know I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but, man, Coach Funkhauser deserves it. He's got to be one of the best out there in the state. He's got great feel for his club. He knows what's important. He mixes and matches, all throughout the year. Bryce Byers, unsigned senior, we got to get him a ton of love. Left-handed bat. When I saw Edwardsville play early on in the year, he wasn't in the lineup. And that's just so typical of a Edwardsville squad, is what you see throughout the year. You're going to see it's kind of like what Providence does with Mark Smith. And, they've won 3 state titles in a row back 2014 through 2016. They collect another one here. It's like there might be some secret sauce there, like maybe the regular season, let's not put so much emphasis on winning every single game, and let's get our club to be as complete and as well-rounded and as experienced as possible, and they use their entire team. And they try to figure out what works. And I cannot be more impressed with what's going on down there at Edwardsville and Coach Funkhauser. And I want to give them a little love, and I think they deserve it. So I know I missed some
Yeah.
stuff. I know there's probably some
No,
other stuff to talk on with Edwardsville, but that's just what I've got.
and Drew, kind of like you were kind of mentioning it too, is like throughout the entire spring, we would always talk about this on our Power 25 calls. Like, man, Edwardsville has X amount of losses, maybe more than other teams in their, general area. Same thing with Pravi. Like, they play really tough competition throughout the year so that they can get to these big games and compete and be prepared for these big games and not be, nervous or scared. Like, they've already played these really good teams and they're ready. So I think
Absolutely.
it's kind of like you mentioned.
No.
So
No, absolutely. And that is part of what they do every year. Yeah, they don't shy away from competition.
I just want to say, like, watching them in the third place game would have been really understandable for a lot of those teams playing in that third place game to just kind of pack it in and just shut it down. Like, hey, we didn't reach our ultimate goal. Edwardsville came out, man. They really wanted to play. They were having fun. Coach Funkhauser was getting a ton of seniors in towards the end of the game, who were playing their final high school game. And you could tell the young guys on that team just wanted to do it for the seniors, send them out the right way. And to me, Deegs would probably be fired up on here, probably saying the same thing about, his Edwardsville Tigers. But to me, like, them and Pravi look primed as anyone to be back here next year. Just with the arms they have coming back, Chiroto's going to be back. Eberlin, Milburn, Ball are all going to be a year older next year. Tyler
Yeah, you
Powell's
could throw
a guy
Tyler
who popped.
Powell in
Yep.
there. Dax Dunnell as a guy that had
Yep.
flashes of really good stuff throughout the year. I mean, it's and that plays into being a good program too, is when you just have a ton of talent continuing to funnel through your program. But no, you're absolutely right. They should be poised to reload and make another run. And I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just was thinking about some of these arms that they had that we
No,
didn't
yeah.
even mention. So yeah.
Yep.
But I think giving Edwardsville a lot of love. I think they deserve it. Another team that deserves a lot of love that I think they could have beef with us, because, and we've talked about them a lot, but we did not know what to do with them. York. I mean, they were kind of in and out of the Power 25, and they had the best pitcher in the state. We did plug them back into the Power 25 before the postseason. But, man, Coach Kalal makes it to state for the second straight year. And he's doing it with not the most household names when it comes to their position players. Yes, I mentioned Ryan Sloan. Yes, he's very, very good. And he can beat anybody in the state. And he's got 3 pitches, upper 90s. You couldn't ask for a better high school arm. But you got to win a lot of games when he's not on the mound. And what they've done is really impressive. Second straight year making it to state. I'll let you guys talk about what you actually saw in this, in the state semis, but just, York, unbelievable stuff, making it back to state there. And go ahead, Gavin.
Yeah, so Def and I got to lock in on this game, and I just wanted to mention that I feel very lucky that I got to see Cam Appenzeller, who's the number 1 2025 in the state, and then Ryan Sloan is the number 1 2024 in the state. So 2 really high level arms. So I'm super pumped that I got to see both of them this year, and I know it was Def's first time seeing Sloan. So it was a really good game. He pitched really well. I mean, granted they lost 1-0, but he was still really good in that game. Up to 98. His fastball's, pretty straight. It's firm, obviously, but it's pretty straight. His slider was just different. It was sharp, had that bite to it. And then his changeup. Tyler and I were back there together, radaring 90 miles an hour with just fade. And we just looked at each other and we're like, are you serious? Like 90 mile an hour changeup. Some kids don't even have 90 mile an hour fastballs, but
you don't see that in high school. That's an outlier
no.
right there.
Yeah. It was ridiculous. And I think, like, aside from the stuff that he has. Tyler and I were talking about this too, just going back and forth. Like, the thing that was really impressive to me is how in sync he was with his mechanics. Like, everything just works and it's all fluid. It's all right down the mound. Like, some guys segment it, their arms aren't super clean. Like, everything with him was in sync, which is not what we're used to seeing every time, because Sloan is very obviously a very polished prospect. Some of these other guys we see, they're still, there's projections still to come. There's maybe some things that they need to work on, but I was blown away by Sloan.
Well,
It was
and
really impressive.
when you see a guy throw 98, let's just say you see a guy throw in the 90s, or a guy that has a strong arm. A lot of the times they have to get to that arm strength with effort, with a head whack, with giving it everything they have. And to me, like, that's what makes him such a high level prospect, is first off the frame. I mean, he's got the workhorse frame, but he moves down the mound with minimal intent, and he's getting 98, sitting mid to upper, and a ton of strikes, and with regular effort. And that, to me, man, if you're getting that kind of velo without having to exert everything into it, that's a recipe for success for sure. And
Yeah.
a 90 mile an hour changeup, that's that's laughable, really, when it comes to a high school guy. That's good stuff. So,
and I think too, like, Def, I don't want to take anything from you, but like, just other things that we talked about is, like, the dude was so locked in for that game. Like, you look at him in the dugout, he's ready to go. He's ready to go. Like, before the game, throwing, like, playing catch, he's ready to go. Like, he was so locked in on the mound. There was probably 1,000 people at this game, and he didn't care. He was locked in on his catcher. Like, it was really impressive. Like, not a lot of guys have that, like, compete ability to truly lock in on the game, and it was impressive. So, Def, I'll let you kind of talk on him and add anything that you may have. But
No, I think you hit everything. I know I was hyping it up to you beforehand because you hadn't seen him yet. When I saw him earlier in the year, it was just for a 2 inning stint. It was when they were still, being cautious with his pitch counting. Man, I don't know what more we can say about Ryan Sloan. It was a pleasure to get to watch him this year, just with all the hype surrounding him. And man, he delivered every time. With every pitch he delivered. So, no, just what a year from him. What a high school career.
So yeah, now the countdown to the draft begins, Tyler, and it'll be really interesting to see where he lands, and if he can make it to Wake Forest, if he gets offered too much money that he can't turn it down. But regardless, he's going to have some options, and it's always really, really awesome to see that high level of talent come through our state, come through Illinois, and I hope they keep coming, because that's what it's all about. You mentioned Cameron Appenzeller, looking ahead at the 2025 class, like Appenzeller and Jaden Fauski should be two names that are going to be on a lot of, pro scouts list here moving forward. But no, Gavin, I just want to say thank you for, all the efforts here with the podcast throughout the spring. Tyler jumping on all the games you guys went out and crushed. And I know, Gavin, your mainstay there in Central Illinois, and giving us a great presence down there, and seeing players play, getting Ethan Eberly, watching him do his thing throughout the spring. But it's been really, really huge for us as a staff and as a state to have, you down in Central Illinois, Diego down in Southern Illinois, Tyler Deffelball in the mix here in Chicago, Peter Hammond in the mix here in Chicago, Kevin Cronin here in the mix, myself, and just trying to cover the state as best we can. That is our whole goal here, is to do the best job we can for the entire state of Illinois, and see these players in showcase, and then go watch them play in a game throughout the high school season. And to me, this is the most important season of the year. These guys playing for their high school teams, representing their communities, their neighborhoods. And it's always sad when we get done with that final game of the year. We got to wait, until next March to watch some high school baseball again. But really, really great stuff. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. I know it was a fun year trying to do this podcast, something a little bit different. And I think moving forward as a staff, we've kind of talked about ways to try and continue a weekly podcast, and maybe just in obviously different ways, not talking about the high school season anymore. So kind of be on the lookout for some new stuff coming up here over the summer and moving forward into the fall and winter. So appreciate you guys all listening and tuning in every week for this. So I'm pumped for the summer now. We got a big summer ahead, future games, Illinois State games, bunch of events. So should be a good summer ahead. So appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Gavin.
Thanks.